I'd like to welcome everybody to the Warrant Finance meeting for March 21st. No. March 28th. It's so cold today, I thought it was still closer to the winter. The first thing on the agenda is to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next thing is approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes for March 21st, 2022 as written.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Yeah, good. The first thing I'd like to do before we get into the ordinances is Tucker Pearson has resigned from the Warrant and Finance Committee. Very saddened that. I appreciate what Tucker's done the last 3 years. And, well, I'm gonna miss his input. But, with that, we'll get into the zoning ordinances.
Excuse me, Dennis.
Yes.
Since Tucker was elected, do we need a motion to accept with regrets, or I don't know what the right thing
Well, when we
is.
do that, and then it goes to Selectmen. Selectmen will address it Wednesday, but we can do it as a committee. I think it'd be a good idea.
All right, then. I would make a motion, we accept with regrets the resignation of Tucker Pearson.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Do you want to do this before or after?
Yeah, we can do, unless she has an announcement she wants to make.
All right. The road committee is scheduling DOT is actually having it. It's a virtual maintaining local bridges class. The road committee is going to be, it's probably attending this. Hopefully our road commissioners are going to be attending this. And we wanted to open it up to anyone from Warrant and Finance if they wanted to. I just wanted to get a ballpark figure for Jennifer so she knows how many people will be attending. So if anyone is interested, if you could.
I'd like to go. Do we have a date?
Yeah, well, we don't have an exact date. The, hasn't actually been scheduled. It's gonna be either April 5th, 6th, or 7th. It is from 8 in the morning until 11 in the morning, and we're gonna be having it here. Yeah, so, Joyce?
Yes.
Let me know, Dennis?
No, I won't be going.
No? Okay, so 2? Any of you guys wanna go?
No, thank you.
Available.
Okay, so I'll send out an email. Jason, I'll email you too when that date is exact, when it's set. So, okay, that's all. I just wanted to get, as many people who wanted to come, give them the opportunity to attend. That's it, Dennis, thank you.
Yeah. Where this package is stapled, I I guess we'll take it in order of how it is. Well, maybe they're not stapled. All right. The ordinance itself is stapled. The other ones aren't, so I'd much rather get these, what I would call easier ones out the way first. The proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance relative to structure. As you can see, they're adding to that subsurface wastewater disposal systems, geothermal heat exchange wells, and water wells, fences and poles. They're not adding poles, but they crossed out the word "and," I'm sorry. To me, this is pretty cut and dry. You want to say anything about it, Chris, or you just want to go right into the question?
All right, well, let's go right into the questions.
So does anybody have any questions for this?
The only thing I'm just curious about is why we're doing this and why now?
There was a discrepancy, where was it, from the state down?
Somebody it was brought to the attention to amend the town ordinance with the state ordinance, so it was just bring in some more verbiage that the state had used in their definition.
So we're just trying to align with the state?
Right.
Yes, we're just, yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
That's all.
Makes it easier
That's
for
the same thing
everybody.
with, a lot of some of these ordinances, some of these amendments or proposals, they're just trying to follow suit with what the state has.
Okay.
That definition's in that chapter 1000 like that, I believe, isn't it, Jason?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
You're forever going to be updating to go along with the
Right,
state.
and things are always changing.
Always changing.
Like, we got this tiny house, that's new to the state.
That's a
too.
brand new thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's
Yeah,
really the
no,
only
it was
question
just,
I had is
it
why.
was a proposal by the board to just
Add
uniform it,
verbiage.
make it, bring it to this town to what the state has.
Yeah.
And I'm all messed up here on my paperwork,
That's all right.
as usual.
Pick the next one.
Proposed amendments to zoning ordinance relative to tiny homes. The only thing, there is tiny homes added to the land use chart, and then the definition of a tiny home is obviously added.
And again, this is, right from the state, I think it's verbatim. They wanted to just, stay with exactly what the state had. So if there's some language in there that is not understandable, it was just because they wanted to go verbatim.
Yeah.
So,
Now that you say that, Jason, I still get stuck, and maybe because of a little history, on manufactured housing.
we discussed that with the planning board. I don't know if, anybody want to touch on that one?
Because, I mean, aren't
Again,
they all
yeah.
manufactured?
No, I mean,
No, a manufactured home comes
Well, I
three
know what a
sections,
manufactured
yeah.
home is, but if I were to go out and buy a tiny house,
Well, you can still construct that on your property.
oh, I know you
by
can
stick building,
construct
but-
it,
Right.
with, probably very nicely, but most of these that you see are bought, and I'm just wondering if that's confusing.
It can be if you don't understand where it's coming from, I guess, so go for it, Gavin.
yeah, well, manufactured housing is, obviously it's produced and assembled elsewhere and then transported to the site and taken off of the chassis. It doesn't stay on the
trailer.
wheeled part of the
Right,
vehicle, so to
right.
speak.
Yeah, I
That's,
mean,
but
we
whereas
have
a
them all
tiny
over the
home,
house. Yeah,
a tiny home stays on the chassis and it's designed so that it could be moved.
it stays, I did not
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
Thank you.
I haven't looked this up, so I could be wrong about this. I seem to recall it somewhere during my time on the planning board that we had an ordinance that limited the housing to be over 400 400 square foot. Wouldn't the same thing have been accomplished if we just had removed that 400 square foot?
Where are you referring to in the?
Like I said, I don't have my zoning book, so I don't know. I'm just trying to, I'm remembering off the top of my head that there was a, somewhere in the ordinance.
Minimum.
What's the square footage of isn't 400 square feet the minimum you could just build a house?
So a tiny house does not exceed 400 square feet, so
I
it's
know.
smaller.
Okay, so what's the difference between that and a stick-built house that's 400, is it 400 square feet? I thought that was the minimum.
I think the foundation is one of the biggest differences. The tiny home, like I was saying, is built basically on a trailer of some sort. And then it's meant to be left that way so it can be moved.
Well, yeah.
Whereas a home itself is gonna have a foundation and most likely be, further weatherized underneath the thing.
Because what we had, and I think, Joe, is what Joyce and Leslie are saying is true, unless it was taken out. We did have an ordinance in there that, when you were building a house, it had to be a minimum of 400 square feet.
Is that still
And
true?
they put that in many years ago.
Yeah.
People were buying them 10 by 32
Storage
trailers.
and storage
and living in them.
places, yeah.
Yeah,
And so now the state makes it so it's mandatory that if a tiny home is to be allowed on any parcel of land, that a single dwelling unit is allowed to be put
But
on.
like I said,
But if you were,
if we had, put-
technically, Leslie, if you strike out that
if we had
400.
just pulled that language out of that, we wouldn't have had to,
Well,
we wouldn't even be having the conversation about the manufacturing and the confusion that seems to be bringing about.
well, it's not really, because if you took that language out, you could be back to what the reason is why it was put in there to begin with. Because, like I said, back in the 70s, late 70s, people were putting in these small mobile homes. And the town decided that they wanted something that was a minimum of 400 square feet. And that's where the 400 square feet came from.
But Dennis, if you look at any tiny home places, a lot of them are talking about taking, like shipping containers and making that into a tiny house and all of that.
I think
So
that
wouldn't
is a
that-
tiny house, but it's not a tiny home.
And the state
It's a
just said, you can't
There
do
is a
that
difference,
anymore, is
yeah.
what it amounts to. The state says you have to allow these tiny houses.
Right.
And myself personally, I think all they're doing is just making the place in there so that,
And you can put a tiny home on the foundation as well. I just read it. So,
I have a question. A tiny home, does that come on the same minimum acre, 90,000 square feet? In other words,
Nothing changes when
Nothing
it comes to a
changes.
building law,
Okay.
to a buildable law.
all right. The other thing is, the tiny home definition is constructed on a frame or chassis and designed for use as a permanent living quarters.
Yep.
The last, E does not include a trailer, semi-trailer, camp trailer, a recreation vehicle, or manufactured housing. Does that contradict what the first part says, or am I just,
No, it doesn't.
what does that mean? Does not include a trailer?
Does not
Came on a trailer but it does not include a trailer.
well, it comes down to the definition of each one of those things listed. The definition of a trailer, I mean, you think about what a trailer is, of course, it has multiple definitions, but probably we're thinking about,
You're talking about a trailer that we know where you buy and it's brought to your, it's assembled or brought to your home, where it's supposed, the tiny home is, okay,
So you can think of like a trailer as a contractor's trailer. You know,
Okay.
Something like that. Your semi-trailer, somebody has a 18-wheeler that's no longer in use, they throw it on there, oh, it's my house. You know? Same thing with camp trailer, recreational vehicle, it could be an old RV that's broken down. That's,
Okay.
they're not
All right.
including that.
Well, actually, I was just a little bit confused at the wording.
So it all depends on how you want to interpret each one of those.
Is
I
this
guess, in a
tiny
sense.
homes, is this like a coming thing as far as?
Yes.
The state of Maine
allowing people to live in smaller, more affordable homes, or is this?
Pretty much,
What
yeah.
is
It's
this?
a
Where
new
did-
hip fad, Joe.
Huh?
It's the new hip fad.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Only the-
I don't fit in one of them, so it doesn't pertain to me,
Maybe
so,
we can get you the next size,
right?
big tiny.
Yeah, we'll have to go 800 square feet.
Is that it? The next one is proposed amendment to
That's
the
from the state.
ordinance relative to
I just had it
accessory
up.
dwelling
Do
units.
you wanna see it?
And I believe that what they've done there is just added, or detached from, it just, under 5.14.1.1, under A. I think that's just cleaning stuff up a little bit.
This was presented by me, yeah, I had a conversation with our land use attorney, because there's been some, back and forth on whether Acton allows a detached garage or a detached in-law apartment, or however you want to describe it. And some people would say no, because it was said located within, and then other people would say yes. So I had contacted the land use attorney about this one, and he goes, well, that's a change that we should clarify
Yeah.
and make it. So that was guidance, pretty much.
And that's just making it easier on the
It-
residents.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
So is that something that someone could put an accessory dwelling onto an existing?
As long as it conforms with our land use chart, so you're not allowed to have it in the shoreline zone, you're not allowed to have one in the resource protection and the Little Ossipee. So,
Is that because of density or soil type?
more or less density, you're just not allowed an ADU as of right now in the shoreline zone.
Okay.
There are,
All right, so-
we know there are some, but they're not supposed to be there.
Is this a two-family house type of situation?
So an
I mean, where do
ADU
you
is
draw
a-
the line between accessory and?
So in the definition right here, it has to be, it's no greater than 800 square feet.
Okay.
And
can
it
a-
has to, your
can
septic
a-
has to conform, be up to snuff with whatever
Does
it
the
is.
septic adjoin to the existing, or do you?
Yeah, if your septic can handle the extra capacity, then yes, it's fine. But if
Right.
it's not, then that has to be,
Okay.
it all has to kind of fall in
Can it
suit.
be attached to, or it has to be separate?
It has to be attached to. It
So-
can be
so
either
then
or. And this is
what-
just letting you know that it can be either way, attached or detached. Before, there was some confusion if it was allowed to be detached. Now it just spells it out.
So what's the difference if my mother-in-law is gonna move in, so I build an 800 square foot addition to my house? Is that an accessory, or is that just an
To
addition?
be an accessory, an
Because-
accessory dwelling, because you have two dwellings, so you'd have to pay for a growth permit,
Yeah,
because you have a whole nother dwelling, and then you go for a building permit.
even though if we're attached to the building, yeah?
Well, it comes down to other things such as, is there a separate bathroom in the addition?
Yeah, kitchen.
Is
Well,
it in the
this is what I'm
kitchen?
trying to get
It's a
to.
full
exactly.
apartment.
Because, I mean, you have one word change, and then there's a whole background of stuff that, oh, what, we didn't know about this, we didn't know about that, you know?
And what they're doing, Joe's, my understanding is it gives people more flexibility and clarity.
This now allows a tiny home to be an ADU,
Right.
whereas
This is the
before,
one that-
a tiny home couldn't even exist because we weren't allowing ADUs to be detached from the main structure.
Well, this is the one, Chris, that you can fit in.
Right.
Because it's 800 square foot.
Right. See, that's the beauty of it all. We're trying to conform.
That's really, it does just make it much clearer.
And in the heading there, we changed additional dwelling unit to accessory dwelling unit, just for clarity. I don't know why it was like that, but we had two different phrases with the same acronym, so we.
Yeah, well, I think ADU is the acronym that's been used as just routinely,
Right,
and nobody questioned whether it's additional or accessory.
right.
Yeah,
So then basically what you can do is you can have an accessory dwelling unit. I mean,
I'm just going off your comment here, that an ADU can be considered a tiny home, but on a tiny home, you can only have 400 square feet, but on an ADU, you can have 800 square feet. So just depending how you present it to the town of what it is?
Yeah, it's an accessory dwelling, whether it's an AD. So if you have a house already in Acton and you want to put a tiny home on it, then you're allowed to have that accessory dwelling. So, but you could also put the tiny home on a buildable lot with no house on it. So, you see where I'm going with that? Now, it's just, if you want to roll in a tiny home and park it on your lot and whatever.
Do you need that 2 acres?
No.
No?
No, because it's less than 800 square feet.
Oh, I see.
Is
Once you go over 800 square feet, you turn into a multi-family dwelling, and you need to conform with road frontage, acreage,
Okay.
and other things as well.
Is there
So
still the
Jason-
blood relationship thing?
Jason, so you wouldn't need, you could put an ADU on a non-conforming lot then?
If it's a lot, a building lot, a lot of record,
Right.
if that's what you're asking,
Yeah.
yes.
You're like, I'll use Ray for an example, because I know he's not in shoreline zone. He could put an ADU on his lot, even if it's non-conforming.
Would that be?
So say,
So,
I think as long, you'd still have to meet
You
your
still have to
applicable
meet certain- yeah,
setbacks.
you have to
The
meet-
road, the sideline.
20% lot coverage.
Right.
Everything's still,
and the setbacks,
Yeah,
and so
nothing
you
changes from a
wouldn't need
building.
the road frontage, would you?
no.
Okay.
But nothing changes when it comes, if you would come in, you want to put a shed on your house or your lot, but you only have a 0.1 of an acre lot, and you got a driveway and a house, and there's no, I'd have to tell you no. You know, you don't have the lot coverage, you know.
Well, it's always been, generally understood that you'd find a way to put a shed on it.
You would hope so, but you know how many times I had to say no to somebody in the shoreline zone?
Oh, yeah, if you're in the shoreline, so that's not
Right.
gonna.
You know, so I mean, it is what it is, you know, I have to follow my ordinance.
Well, no, and I certainly understand that. That's why I was wondering, I mean, and I know shoreline zone, there's a lot stricter. That's why I was using Ray as an example, that I know he's not in shoreline zone.
Right.
And I don't know if your lot is a 2 acre lot.
Almost 3.
Oh, okay. So that's a bad example. So, but if it was under 2 acres, that's, and you don't have the road frontage.
As long as you meet your setbacks, and it's under 800 square feet.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else? See nothing? If I miss something, Jason, Evan, Chris, if I just skip a whole ordinance, please let me know.
Makes it easy on us.
You said.
Depends which one it is, right?
I know. So those are 3 of them, right? And we have 6 of them?
6.
You have another, mixed-use structures is another reason, is one that we're just trying to.
We didn't do that one yet.
No.
Proposed
I'm sorry, let me see what it is.
proposed amendments to the ordinance relative to mixed-use structures.
Yeah. just
This is
Contemporaneously, huh?
obviously by definition.
Nice.
It's clarifying some of the wording, on the land use chart and stuff like that, because I know we've had some conversations in the past about, with the zones that we have, and what we can do in them, what can't we do in them, and I believe this is addressing some of that, those issues that have come up to clarify. I'm not trying to explain these.
No, it was
these
just-
guys, this is my interpretation.
I think it was just to
Your thought
help
process.
make the ordinance a little bit more lenient in some of these situations where some of the past zoning had really put a burden on some of these property owners.
That's what we found.
Right. And so this is just trying to get everybody back to some kind of
happy medium.
It's more, I guess,
Fair.
user-friendly to the citizens.
What would be the difference between Class B and Class A? You have, one is restricted and one is not permitted on this.
Commercial A, commercial.
Is it the geographic location of these?
Some of it, yes.
A lot of it, yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
commercial B is over by Young's Ridge Road there, right across the street from Monarch Minerals.
Church,
And yeah, it's
It's a very,
really,
it's a small area.
it's a tiny, tiny thing, and the only place that you really could put anything would be where the store used to be that Bob Anderson owned.
Right,
And
right
that,
there.
I think, is too small to
Right.
Right.
put a whole lot on, anyway.
Joe? Look down there, it says,
It's right.
No, I know where it is, Anderson's
Okay.
old store.
Yeah.
Is that one, is Monarch considered commercial, or is that?
They're on the other side
They're
of
on
the
the
road.
On the other side.
Is that area,
No,
No.
I think that's,
I mean, like in the
Rural.
future, if somebody wanted to
yeah.
Yeah, it's
develop
rural.
that in a commercial capacity, like,
it is commercial right now, isn't it?
No, the other side
It's
of
a
109.
commercial use in the rural district.
Right.
yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, when they depleted that and they graded it out, and then you have a bunch of low areas and, you know, someone comes in and puts a housing situation or, God
Well,
knows
it's
what.
the rural district, so anything allowed in the rural district would be allowed in there. But it's not part of the commercial B like you were
I see.
pointing out, and that's pretty much why we didn't include commercial B, is because it's a very small area that there isn't a lot of commercial development right now. We figured that these mixed-use structures would
So
be,
your mixed use would essentially be a small store with apartments above, or
that's a good example. Yeah,
regular hardware type of
Yeah.
scenario there?
right.
So then the Acton vet would fall into commercial C.
Well, the Acton Vet
Is in rural.
is in the rural district. Commercial C is,
We have some up on the H road, right?
yes, commercial
Yeah.
C is on the H road and
Right, that is.
commercial A is on 109.
I don't even think that's in a commercial zone.
I know that's what I'm saying, but I mean, it's a business and a home.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, that'd be mixed use, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly
But
what
it's
they're
not zoned for commercial.
Is the solar farm
Well,
a,
that is an issue that we have in town, is that the commercial development is occurring throughout the town. Whereas historically, we've tried to coordinate into these particular commercial zones, but it hasn't really worked that well. And partially because it's a small amount of land that isn't really turning over. The current owners do what they want to do with it. It's, you know, like, the commercial district is small. Someone comes into town and they want to put in a commercial establishment, they don't really necessarily have an option to buy property in the commercial zone. They just buy a property where they can.
Or they've had businesses for
Years.
years.
I mean,
Right, and then exactly, you have home occupations that blossom too and become commercial businesses that, and we don't preclude them from being in the rural or critical rural zone. That's just the nature of the development, I guess. I mean,
Town.
I think in the future, these zones are gonna be where we would direct larger commercial developments like Hannaford's or you name it, things that aren't just family-owned businesses.
Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen, there we
So then
go.
basically, if something big like that came to the town, you would tell them, well, if you can buy property in this area or this area, then you can come to town.
Basically, which is mostly 109 and H Road. Currently.
I think, watching past meetings, at some point, the planning board will be looking at the maps and make some adjustments. Because when the maps were made originally, the maps were made according to the businesses that were in existence. And it was a place to start, and, I think once Jason gets his feet underneath him, I would think that in the next year, or the year after, I don't know, that the zoning maps will be looked at, because, there are issues that come up, and it doesn't fit our zoning map. And so we
Right.
need to change at least the commercial on 109.
Yeah.
We really need, to me anyway, we need to expand that.
Flat ground one looks like a good.
Flat-
Commercial zone, right?
Is the solar farm on the H Road, is that
Well,
commercial?
hold on, Joe, we're not
We're
gonna
gonna
get
get
there
there.
yet.
We'll get,
No, I'm just asking about the,
Is it in commercial?
yeah.
I think it is, I think it's in,
Barely.
but I think it might also be behind commercial, because if you look at the map here, I would think that,
That's right
Is that
beside Larry's.
purple,
I don't know, I think,
It's right below Larry's.
I'm trying to get a insight as to what you people are looking at in determining changing the stuff here, so in this area here on the H Road, this is the new,
You got Pat
I almost
Doyle.
feel like
what's
there's
that,
a
commercial C?
commercial C.
Okay, I got you. All right,
see this thing right here?
Yeah.
I almost feel like that is where it is, but.
That'd be where the old.
They got Larry's
orchard was.
place on one, and Pat's on the other side of the road.
Okay,
And the orchard
Nevin
is
thinks
below
it's
Larry's.
right here.
That's
That
probably,
little-
that bump's
Yeah, I can
probably
see
the
it, yeah.
orchard.
Exactly.
And I don't believe that would have been
Does it have a bump on that
commercial,
one?
Gavin, because when that was done, the maps, that was still orchard.
Well, the
there's a-
orchards were a commercial endeavor at the
There's a
time.
bump
I think
on
they
the
might have
map.
been,
But
There's a bump on that,
I know there's
on the
an
map.
interesting, yeah, see right here, I almost feel like that is where it is, but.
That bump, yeah, because if you go from Square Pond,
Yeah,
you go just
could be.
over there. Right. Exactly.
Yes, thank you.
I guess my only theory about that, Gavin, was that we have a lot of orchards in town and we didn't do a commercial. So,
Yeah, well, I think that was,
That was
you
that.
would know better than me, Dennis, but I would think that that was
You could have-
one that was maybe more active at the time than other ones had already been abandoned. Is that the one,
What
that
kind?
Art Kelly used to own that?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
originally Bob Lovejoy owned it.
yeah.
When he had his runway.
Well, that is a tricky thing to, you have commercial development like solar arrays that we don't necessarily want these things crammed right on 109 where people drive into town, the first thing they see is half a
Solar.
mile of solar panels. So it's kind of, it's a hard,
I don't know what the answer is.
no, I mean, and it's something we've been struggling with since,
You know,
These
this
things
is
came on the radar.
Changing times.
yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, you know, one day at my little farm, which is hypothetical, I put a little vegetable stand out. The next thing, I'm making candles and I'm making kitchen doodads to go with them. So I've gone from being this little agricultural business to now I'm making more money making candles and kitchen things. So now I'm running a business and it's a change in times. So, you know, as a town and an entity, do we have to keep up with that? Maybe, but I think maybe it's time changes and we go forward. It's not, and I think that's what this does. We're just moving forward with these
Makes
things.
sense.
It's
Anything
pretty
else from
good.
anybody? Well, see, Joe brought it up. I guess the next thing we go into is solar. As most people know, we have no solar ordinance at this time. And the two ones that have been approved, they were approved under guidance of state law and,
And if you look at your solar
Whatever.
packet, E and F are what we have existent in our zoning ordinance.
and
So it's all renewable energy.
so in reality, we have nothing. And this has been going on for 2 years.
3 years.
When we started talking about it.
Right.
Other than that.
Yeah. These
Well, maybe it's before my time, I don't know.
would have been.
But anyway, the purpose of this thing here is to give the planning board something, to bite onto, so when they
I'll give it right back to you.
do conditions and, escrows and stuff like that, you'll have something, to back themselves up.
So I'd like to just,
You gonna take that?
make a quick statement on this one. The planning board still has, we have a special meeting on Thursday. We have to re-vote on this one. We made a last minute change, last Thursday that, we have to change it because, we sent it back to, the land use attorney. And he said it put us in a situation that could bring, legal issues. So on the last page, we have 10 and 12. We added the word minimum. We were trying to make it less,
We're trying to soften the blow.
yeah, so before it stated, the applicant must, on 10, it stated, the applicant must demonstrate that the project is not viewable from any point on the Great Pond in town. And we're Acton, we have ponds everywhere, so how do you so that almost puts you in a situation where, well, you got no place to go. So we changed it to a minimal visibility, but our land use attorney put it to us as, or to me as, well, who decides where it's minimal? So it puts you in a situation where, it doesn't work. It puts you in too much, yeah. And then it's same thing for 12. 12 stated solar farms located in a rural district. Applicant must demonstrate that the project is not viewable from a public road. And we went to the minimum section again. But, so we have a meeting on Thursday. We have to just figure out what we're gonna do with those to take us out of that situation. We're either gonna put it back to what it stated or even possibly just strike them completely. So I just wanted to let you know, this one is not it's not voted on. We have to do it again.
Well, it was, but.
It was voted on, but we sent it to the attorney just to make, because we made the changes. And he said, well, hold on.
We were trying to be nice.
So now I'm just letting you know, that's where this one stands. It's not one that's ready to go forward. It will be next Monday, but just not today.
Right.
But we can still go over it. I'm just letting you know what those changes
Sure.
need to be. Okay?
Joe didn't say that he was talking about me and nothing, what the definition was.
No.
Me, for example, did.
No, it wasn't you. No, it really was, and I can read the email. It just said, it puts us in, it just puts us in, it just puts us in risk for litigation.
I'm fine.
And I would assume that if you knew that, and the selectmen knew that, then this wouldn't be going forward anyway, so. We gotta make the change appropriately.
And Chris, and I probably should have said this in the beginning, that, we're not voting on any of this stuff.
Yeah, I already knew that. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that this was still,
We won't vote on it
Changed.
until after the selectmen pass it on to us, so it'll probably be 2 weeks.
yeah.
I'd like to ask, the maximum height of a roof-mounted accessory solar energy generation system is 25 feet. Is this 25 feet
Ground mounted. That's a ground mounted, not roof mounted.
ground? Okay, so what would it be a roof, if you had a two-story house, could you go above the 25 feet? Would you?
Well, a two-story, the maximum structure in Acton is allowed to be 35 feet. So
Okay.
wherever that conforms on a roof,
Okay.
of that size.
So you'd be constrained to the 35 foot.
For if it's a roof mounted, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question on the last page, number 8.
Yep.
And I think we talked about this before. I have some questions about whether the legality of revisiting their financial surety every 5 years. When they come in, we issue them a permit, we ask for an escrow. I'm not quite sure that we have the authority to ask them for more money after the permit's been issued.
I think we added that for inflation.
Well, it is possible that, we would review, or our designee would review the funds and find that it's gonna cost less to take these things down, because now scrappers buy the solar panels and recycle them, and,
I know, but we're talking about ifs.
so we have to be able to stay up with the times, because these things are for 20 to 40 years.
Right, no,
So we need to stay up with inflation on that point.
What's the legality of that?
Well, we ran it by the land use attorney and he didn't say anything.
Right, there was no issue.
Did
And
he
this- so this-
specifically address that, or?
He read the whole thing, he went over and as a fine tooth comb, but So this ordinance, or this proposed amendment was drafted by one of our consultants that have done this for many of towns.
I think you did it for
I actually
Freeport.
printed up some other towns that they had done. I asked for examples. I got Freeport and Naples with 2 examples of just that one, that they both have that section in it as well. I also have, I printed up a half a dozen of them, just so in case you guys did want to have questions on why we're putting this in there. And a lot of the other towns' amendments have sections like that in it.
Yeah, because I just don't want to see us, putting that in and then finding out later that we have a legal issue, because of this. So I just want to make sure we're on good solid ground with it.
I think we are. I mean, I think it makes sense that we would be able to renew and adjust the funds if it's necessary with the way the economy's going. We need to be able to stay up with this stuff.
I mean, I would say where, Joe looked at it and
North Star.
North Star, I believe the original document you guys had, watching your meetings, came from North Star, and then you guys worked on it and made adjustments and whatever.
Yeah, it was very similar to what you see today.
No, I appreciate that,
Yeah.
but I
There were
guess
some
my
differences.
point is that, North Star that does this for a living, brought this stuff up, and then you patched it by the attorney. And myself, I would assume that we'll see down the road how it works.
So, so one of the reasons why we had board members that had questions about even if we even needed this in our ordinance. Well, because the state has its own guidelines too, but the state guidelines are less, lenient, or more lenient, excuse me.
Right.
So they allow up to 50-acre solar farms, where the board doesn't want to see something of that size and magnitude in Acton at this time. So they restricted like the large ones to 30 acres, I believe, 30 or 20 acres. So it follows suit with a lot of what the state has, but it's more restrictive.
The only question I have for you, and I understand this completely, is kind of an after-the-fact question. 5 years from now, is it gonna be in a file cabinet somewhere and nobody knows it? So,
What's that?
no one knows, it's supposed to be reviewed.
Follow-up.
Is it gonna be going the way of the comp plan? You know? Kevin, you know that
Right. Well, I don't feel like there's
planning
any,
board went forward all the time on the comp plan, we did our stuff, but that was the end of it. And now, how many years out of date is it,
right.
And I would hate to see the effort that went in, especially starting from zero. I would hate to see the effort put into it. Then it just kinda, flutters away.
I would think that, myself personally, I wouldn't be able to do this. I'm sure Jason can. That with the technology and stuff we have in the computer system, that if Jason had that put in, say, this was done this date, and there's some kind of a bell or something that rings 5 years from now and it tells you you gotta check this.
The town of Hancock has almost the same verbiage in their ordinance for solar every 5 years.
So
There has to be a follow-up.
Yeah.
Some
Right.
sort of a plan done, because planning board members change, and it's very easy, when you have turnover to lose track of things that need to get done.
It's a very good point. No, so one of the things that the office downstairs is working on right now, and it should be ready really soon, is a whole new permitting process. And even just for something like revegetation, so trees get taken down and you have your 1 year inspection, your 3 year inspection, and your 6 year inspection. Well, now I have a program that's gonna alert me when that time is up. So it actually has a calendar for inspections, and it sends me an email and says, okay, time to get out of your office. But So, I mean, yeah, that would be something that would go in there as well as something in the permitting process, you know, and hopefully myself or anybody else downstairs does follow up, but we're only as good as we do our job, so.
Yeah,
See how much better job Jason did explaining that than I did. I'll do bell dinging or something. Thank you, Jason.
I'd just like to say one thing, that I think that the hiring a biologist and as well as a archaeological site person where does that stop and start? I mean, you could,
Well,
you know, I mean, you could go to any piece of land in Acton to a biologist and see. I mean, it's just, everything is so delicate in the environment, sort of like, with something like that, the cost of which and the time involved.
well, that's not the
Hold on.
town's cost, that would be the applicant's cost, because this, so medium solar farms as well as large solar farms puts them in site plan review, which puts that on their, in their wallet, you know, they have to.
Is that part of the existing site plan review, or would that be included?
No, we're allowed to do that as right now within the site plan review process. If we require that they need to do some kind of soil bring in a soil specialist, wetland delineations, anything like that, that is within our.
We've done that in the past.
Yeah, we're.
Nothing new.
That is not, yeah, exactly, thank you, that's nothing new, and they are responsible to provide us with information if requested, so.
and there's a lot of resources out there too that, I mean, I know around the lakes, you can go online and find out where endangered birds live and endangered other creatures live. That stuff is all readily available.
So, like I explained to the planning board last time, this was one of the things that we wanted to enact, because we didn't want to get caught, excuse the term, but with our pants down, like we did with what we did with the extraction pits. We wanted to put the moratorium in there, and what the planning board wanted to, one of the reasons to do it was to take it away for larger pits from conditional use, to put them into site plan review. So that was one of the things that the ordinance was the moratorium was gonna allow us to do. Well, this is doing it right from the start. So now we're
Proactive.
we're proactive, we're ready right from the beginning, we're not trying to back.
Catch up.
Yeah, we're not, exactly. So this puts us in a situation where if a large solar field wants to come in, then it's not a conditional use application. It's right from the beginning, it's a site plan review. You're held to a higher standard, and you have to provide us with the information and documentation that we ask for.
And that site plan review isn't just a one-page checklist.
No, it's very, there's a lot of criteria that you have to meet
Right.
in order to
I think it's about 8
proceed with it,
pages.
so. We just wanted to make sure that the town was, it wasn't falling behind.
It's a lot better being proactive than it is.
Yeah.
And I know it looks like there's a lot, but there's a lot to cover. You have a lot of different things that's going on with the solar systems, you know? It's not a one paragraph definition change, you know? You want to make sure that you're covering your bases here,
Right.
so.
Under 5.29.3, 5, double I, talk about disposable of all solid and hazardous waste in accordance with local, state, and federal waste. Do we have something on a local level, as far as that is written up? I mean, that verbiage is in there, but I don't know if, being that this whole situation is new, was there something that was implemented as far as a local level of getting rid of this hazardous waste?
I believe, right, that, yes, we do. And that's all covered under our ordinance.
5.2.
That governs our transfer station, what we can dispose of there.
yeah, it's
and what we
somewhere.
can't.
Right above
Doesn't say what we can, it says what we can. So if they,
Yeah, right there.
correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, so if it's not allowed at our transfer station, then they go through the state to find out where they can take it, or the feds.
Correct, they would go to the state, or they'd even have to go to a commercial dump situation where you could be going to Simpson's, not your local town.
And-
Yeah, you'd have to follow, your state guidelines are gonna cover most of that, as well as your federal. The local, yeah.
Well, and that's why I was asking, because the verbiage is in there, so if they're looking at, in accordance with the local, So that means the town of Acton, do we have some ordinance? And you say that the transfer station does have a waste disposal?
Yeah.
A hazardous waste disposal?
Well, I believe it's an ordinance, maybe it's just a policy.
I think it's a
There's a
policy.
difference between waste disposal and hazardous waste.
I appreciate that, but what I'm saying is, and maybe it's just a policy, I'm not sure, but I do know there was a list of what you can take to the transfer station.
Yeah, I think it's just a policy. It's on the back of
Very well
the
could be, so
yeah.
maybe I used the wrong word.
I mean, I know that, I'm in Shapley, and I know we have certain things that we're not allowed to
Yeah.
dispose of at the dump, but that's, almost in a sense, common knowledge. You're supposed to throw some batteries away, you can't just dispose of a car battery and you're not supposed to.
Right.
In your trash.
In your trash, that has to be disposed in an appropriate way. It's no different than paint thinners or things like that. Or you can't just go and, you're not supposed to just go and throw it in the dump. People do. People always try to do stuff that you're not supposed to, so.
I think
you
one
regulate
of
the
the
best you can.
things, though, Jason, too, is if we were 25 years ago, we would be looking at a lot of hazardous waste.
Definitely.
Today on the panels, you're probably speaking, almost all of it is recyclable. In fact, some of the larger companies are going in and taking back, and they're using it themselves to, the glass. They're redoing whatever you do to glass to make new glass. They're reusing it. And the aluminum, all of those things are recyclable. So it's not as big, it's almost as much as 85% now is recyclable. And then the ordinances and the laws, state laws, and EPA cover the rest. I mean, that was something I looked at, and it's like, this has come a long way.
And that is a very up-and-coming business,
Yeah.
recycling this stuff. There's
I
a
would
few
imagine it
big
used to
companies
come-
around the country.
When they do upgrade, they would upgrade that with more sophisticated
Right.
solar
Oh, yeah.
panels, and you see how it's evolved in the last 10,
Exactly.
15 years. We're headed to, eventually, I think we're gonna have our own little unit in our houses that we can at least get through them.
I know someday you'll be plugging your car in, aren't Joe?
I'm going back to a horse.
I used to plug
Which
my,
produces its other waste.
I used to plug my car in to warm the oil up and water up so I could start it in the morning.
Where are we gonna put the plug in here?
Yeah.
We're gonna we'll have one here.
Anything else? Okay, I believe this is our last one. Proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance adding section 5.1 residential rental unit. And I think I'm right that this is all new as far as, the definitions, and we had none of that stuff anymore, right? That's all new language.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is basically a whole new ordinance with changes to the
Land use chart?
land use chart. Thank you, Jason. There's two more lines added into the land use chart.
Well, I think K was already there.
Okay,
I wasn't.
Oh, no, it wasn't, I lied. That's there in case, what was it? Tiny homes. got
Right.
Put in there, and if it
Yeah.
doesn't get put in, then it will take the place of the other one, whatever it is.
I should have read the word reserved.
Yeah.
And
Well, initially, we just
I
had,
remember that.
we just plugged tiny homes in there with the land use chart from tiny homes. But then we were like, we don't really want to add that verbiage, it's not in the ordinance, in with the rental
right,
verbiage. So we just changed it to reserved so that we don't get screwed up on the lettering if both of them get approved.
right. So, but I just wanna ask this. And I mean, I have no idea, but if the tiny house one passes and this passes, but in order to put tiny house in there, you'd have to come to the town again to add that. Because you're changing part of the, you know what I mean, the wording in a,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's,
putting that out there again.
I know we weren't sure exactly how to play it, but you can see that under the tiny homes, it is K. I mean, I feel like, I mean,
No, I mean, any changes in the ordinance, whether it's in the land use chart or anything, have to go in front of town meeting.
right,
I'm not against
well, we could ask,
one way or the other, but if we're gonna have tiny homes, it'd be a shame to pass the ordinance and not have it as part of our land use chart and have to wait till another town meeting to add it to the land. Because there's nowhere in the land use chart where it say it's allowed.
yeah.
Or
Well, we could
restricted or
we could
whatever.
ask the attorney what he thinks about our having it reserved,
Right,
because I'm not exactly sure how we should
Right.
proceed on that.
I mean, I just know
We
that
just didn't wanna,
you can't change it,
right,
you know, only the town meeting can do it, and I'm just trying to save you guys,
Yeah.
a lot of work to have to wait a year before you can,
well, I mean, we could put reserved for tiny homes. But then,
Still
that
have
would
to go
screw, that would
before-
probably be even worse if tiny homes didn't
Yeah,
have.
you'd
You
still
know.
have to go before town meeting.
Yeah,
it's up to you guys, do whatever,
well, we're not sure, I mean,
but we need,
we can ask legal.
I mean, don't you think, yeah, I mean, it should be settled before,
I'll
Yeah,
make a
if you're
call.
doing
I'll
it on the
have a
other-
conversation tomorrow.
you know?
Yeah.
And I might be wrong.
Well, I feel like this is, it's better to have it reserved than to have tiny homes on this
Oh,
document.
definitely, I mean, I agree 100%.
But maybe we have to do more.
But find out, if you're gonna
Yeah.
find out tomorrow, then you know.
Yeah.
I just have sort of a general question. How many rentals do we, not the lake rentals, but how many rentals do we have in town? Full-time rentals,
Your guess is as good as ours.
Right.
really?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of hard to know,
Yeah.
you know, because you have different scales of rentals too. I mean, these aren't all full homes. People will rent out a single room in their home.
Or garage room.
Or an
Studio
ADU,
above,
maybe they're
yeah.
renting out their ADU. And it's kind of hard to actually know what people are doing. We do know that, I mean, I know people who rent, I know people who rent a room in their home to someone else. So rentals do exist,
Oh, yeah, I just,
but
I guess I never thought of it so much as
yeah,
here.
I mean, this,
It was carried over, this was
Right.
carried over from previous board, and we had the public hearing on it, and most people felt like we were attacking the lake people per se, or summer people.
Well, summer rentals and full-time rentals are,
Well, so, yeah, but we decided to make it fair across the board and just kinda go for both summer and long-term rental, like I call them long-term rentals.
yeah, the last
Yeah,
word
so-
definition.
we just thought it'd be fair going that way instead of singling out a certain group in town, or not in
Now,
town, but whatever.
so like Chris had just said, this was taken from last year's, or the planning board, from the previous planning board.
Right.
And the comments and input from the town meeting was considered into this one. As well as, so wasn't the input from, Acton's fire chief. We had some, concerns and questions and why they wanted to enact it. And so a lot of it was, this was being put in because it's not more or less to monitor who's renting, it's to make sure that the people who are renting are
Safe.
safe, yeah.
But that was always,
So-
Gavin can tell you, that was always the way.
It's really not about, hey, I wanna get a permit fee off of this guy, or I wanna make sure that, it's more or less to make sure that that somebody is renting to somebody, is providing them a safe structure or safe anything. Someone new to town, where is your, information sheet? Where do you go? Who do you call? You know, I've done VRBO and Airbnb. In these things, there's always an information sheet. You know, they always, this is no different than if you're doing something like that. Some people already do that, and the people who aren't, we're trying to get them to conform. And if it takes them coming into the town and asking, and the town requiring them to do a permit to make sure that making sure that everybody's safe, then so be it. You know, that's kind of how I look at it, and I'm definitely not trying to make anybody's job more difficult or trying to inhibit somebody from making a little bit of money on their summer rental, but don't make money on somebody and somebody's life, exactly. And that's kind of what this is. So a lot of this description here, or the on the last page, if you read it, there was a lot more
verbiage.
There was a lot more restrictions, and you had to follow more. Now we're just making it more or less, please follow some guidelines that
Jason, you did say one thing, and you said, I don't want to make money on permits.
Well,
Is there?
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying,
no.
it's not like.
No. There's nothing in here that says there's a permit.
Right, well, I might have just overspoke something as I was going.
Well, no, in conversation, we can all do that. But if there is,
Yeah.
$10 or something to handle the paperwork, I don't have a problem with it.
Right, and that's what we
But should it be in there?
Right, and that's just something that, we'll talk with the selectmen as well as the planning board and
Yeah.
trying to figure out where we go forward with this. And I understand it definitely should be in there.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. During the public hearing, we asked if the planning board would contact the fire chief to find out what he considered an acceptable egress. Have you done that? Now, what does he consider an egress?
So egress can be a door. Does your place have a door that's 3 feet wide and allows somebody with a oxygen tank and, a firefighter in there with a full suit, things like that. You could have an egress window and crawl, things.
So if there's a door in the room, that's acceptable.
So if it's not big enough, the fire chief goes there, does he stop and say, I can't give you a permit to rent this out? Do you have to go back? Which could be a problem.
Could be a problem.
It can be a problem for the fire people, it can be a problem for the owner.
It could be a problem for the owner, not the fire department.
Joe,
Well, I'm just,
if you're renting out property, what they're talking about is covered under state law. Okay? There's a lot of restrictions that the state has for many reasons.
right.
And
All right, Dennis.
but my impression is, with this, is opposed to what it was a year ago, you're going to have the fire chief or the designee go out and inspect this place to make sure people can get out of the building. And if the fire chief says, yes, everything's fine, then you just move ahead. But if the fire chief says no, under state law, they're gonna shut you down anyway, is what I'm saying. So what they're doing is, my impression is making it a little more flexible in the town than what it was a year ago.
Well, the last one stated they wanted egress windows in all bedrooms, everything like that. And we understand the burden that puts on somebody, and it's not about costing people money.
No, I
Well,
understand
making
the
sure they're
importance in this, but what I'm understanding is, the reality is that how many people will go through the process to get a permit or go through the,
You really don't know.
you really don't know.
That's life. You try to get everybody to comply, but you're not gonna get everybody.
If you were to do some sort of a program through your office where you had the qualifications for rentals and the things that you wanted, the fire extinguishers and things like that, and you handed it to people, or you handed it out or went out with your tax bills, so people became aware of this, or put it on the website or something so that people are more aware of it, in the sense that a lot of times you have laws, but nobody knows about them, you know, until they go to your office and say, hey, you know.
Well, a lot of people don't live in town that would rent property, and they would know, have no
Well,
idea
you
what
remember
they're doing
last year,
there.
the man that came in about hardwiring
Right.
the smoke detector of the carbon dioxide.
And they,
I mean, I could see his point.
yeah,
And yet I could see Kenny's point too.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, in 2 weeks, you gotta hardwire something, get an electrician.
and they changed that part, Joe.
I know, but this is the transcript, this is how it evolved.
Oh, it does.
But I think that's the whole thing, it's a thing of communication too.
Yeah.
So,
We tried to take out as much,
Money costing.
burden to the landowner or the property owner that's trying to rent to this person. Because that was a big, major concern, even in the public hearing that we had just a little while ago, as well as the town meeting. It was 90% of the comments that were made was about, well, this is gonna cost us too much money, you know, and so.
I've got a couple other things too. There is a website called citydata.com that lists an awful lot of information about cities. So back in 2019, it listed that there are 2,271 homes in Acton. There's 988 occupied and 853 are owner occupied. I'm assuming, I'm making an assumption that the difference is the seasonal houses. There's 125 renter occupied, which gives us a percentage of renters at 13%. So we do have a ballpark. Like I said, this was in 2019, so I don't know how much it might have changed.
Well, that was before the Airbnb and VRBOs really took off too. I mean, these
But no,
really-
this is talking about occupied, which,
Okay.
there's 2271 houses in Acton. 988 are occupied, so,
Yeah, I mean.
you know, I'm assuming that is
Right.
year-round
I mean,
homes.
probably, I would say a good 70% of houses around on the shore, around the lake are seasonal, you know? Maybe not that high. I mean, there's a lot of just camps that we
Right,
still
but
have.
there's a lot away from the lakes that are occupied year-round.
Right.
So, and also, because when I asked about how many houses actually, how many renters we actually had, I was told to look up the data.
Good job.
I did look up the so if, so this kind of information is available. Right now, we're looking at a ballpark of 125 rental properties year-round.
I think that's probably low, but we can go with that.
It's enough to warrant doing it.
It's better than what we had. We
Right.
had no idea before. And I'm not sure how applicable this is. The legislature just turned down passing a bill. Now, this was a bill that was going to increase, they sought to increase affordable housing by allowing municipalities to adopt ordinances imposing fees on residential properties not occupied by a permanent resident. So this possibly could affect us charging fees on these seasonal properties for this. I mean, like I said, I don't know how applicable this is. This was shot down at the legislature, so apparently it's something that we need to be aware of.
So, I'm trying to just get my handle on what you just said. So, anybody who had a rental property or any municipality was allowed to charge a fee, an annual fee?
No, they wanted to pass a bill allowing municipalities to adopt ordinances imposing fees on residential properties not occupied by a permanent resident. So that would be our lake houses.
Sure.
And it failed.
That's good.
They
That's a good-
they also wanted to take now how we have a growth permit, growth.
And they want you-
35, to do away with that so that,
I know, but that has nothing to do with what we're
Well, I know,
talking
but it's
about.
another thing from Augusta coming down and telling
Right.
everybody, you know, how you're gonna run your little town, and
So I don't know if you want to run that by Joe. The bill was LD 1337.
But it didn't pass, correct?
No, but it was going to allow municipalities to charge a fee.
It was
So is
going
that,
to.
so are we not allowed to charge a fee on these rental properties? That's the question.
Oh,
on the rental
Well,
property,
that-
not
what you just,
a vacant,
Yeah,
not
Yeah.
vacant property.
what you just read, Leslie, didn't say anything about rental properties, it just said that it
Not
wasn't.
occupied by a permanent resident.
Exactly, so that could be, I come up for a couple.
2 weeks out of the
couple
year
months Of
and,
the year, and then the rest of the year I'm living somewhere
You
else.
don't live here, you own a lake property, you rent it out.
Doesn't say anything about rentals in what you just read, though.
No, I didn't, but
Right.
that's,
right.
But a
I'm
permanent resident,
extrapolating it further. You know, if
Right.
we charge a fee for this, are we allowed to do that?
I think we are, because it covers the cost of the inspection, and
pay for it.
It's a
it's
permit
because
fee.
they're renting it out and making money off of their building. You could be up here and your building would be unoccupied part of the year, but you're not making money off of it, renting it. So we wouldn't really have any business charging a fee to those people.
I believe Sanford's already doing the same thing.
What is?
Sanford.
Are they? All right, like I said, I ran across this, it was a question I had, are we allowed or not?
I think Sanford, yeah, they do charge a fee.
yeah, and I think Bernard he has a rental property in Portland, and I think he said that he gets, Portland charges him or something.
Yeah, in one of their ordinances, they,
Like I said,
And
it's
that's how a
some,
lot of this started, when Bernard did a lot of research from what he knew from
Portland.
Portland, and then we still had to make a lot of changes, because even what was drafted prior, it was too restrictive, so we're just trying to just make sure that,
Make it a little bit easier on.
Common sense has to come into it.
that's what a lot of this is just common sense, and it's just being put on paper. And we're just asking people to just have a little respect for other people in a sense.
Well, Gavin, you remember when we had people come in, we had the state fire marshal, we had, Ricky came in, we had others. And one of the things that I think, it wasn't popular, but it was kind of true. If you rent a house on the lake and you've rented, say you're paying $2,500 a week, which I understand is not high up here, it's very low. And it cost you $2,500 to bring your house, your rental up to, your summer rental, up to code, to meet code, to put in that egress, whichever it is. That's not, you're still going to get another 15 weeks rental coming in. So these things are common sense. And I don't see how, a lot of things for small, you're doing business, let's face it, you're doing business.
Everybody wants
this
to,
is just a door, then I don't see any room that doesn't have a door.
That's like Joyce minute.
If you have to spend $10 or $20 to get a permit to do business, it's a cost of doing business.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, if an egress is a door, then I don't know of any room in any house or apartment that doesn't have a door. So there's no
yeah,
expense in
but
that.
there's some houses that have smaller doors that just recently have been built because I've been in them, so, I mean, it's not a standard door.
Is it up to code, though?
I don't know.
If
You'd
it's
have to
recently
send.
built, there should be.
My shoulders touch the door, so, and it's coming out of a bathroom, and I can tell you, it's right down in Eagles Trace, so.
That was an issue at the town meeting, was that a lot of these places are built prior to the 80s, 60s, whatnot, and so a lot of these places aren't to code. So in order to bring it, so before it was egress windows in all bedrooms, that's a great expense on some of these places that want to rent out. And some of the places don't have, they don't have the money to do that, and so they wouldn't be able to rent their place out, so that was the big issue, so that was one of the reasons why we got rid of that.
And that's why you just have to meet fire code, really.
Basic?
Basic.
Yes.
And I think this is a lot more user-friendly than what it was, myself personally.
Now that we have a small picture of the amount of possible rentals there are in Acton, I'm looking at, last page on B, as far as providing an insurance, naming the town of Acton the certificate of holder. Is that something that, has been in existence, or is this something that's new coming in? I think it's something new because it's shaded. Is there a plan to inform the owners that this is something that they now have to do? I mean, what's, as before, how is somebody that doesn't live here and rents out their property, how are they to find out that this is now something that's required of them to do? And what is the plan to inform these people that this is something that they have to do?
I was really hoping to have the Warrant and Finance Committee go door to door and hand out a pamphlet.
And I heard you were nominated to be the first one knocking on people's
I'd be
doors.
more than happy to do that. My
And
fee is
Dennis
about
can be back.
$75 an hour.
We're gonna do, we'll do the best we can to inform these people. How are we gonna do it yet? I don't know. But
Put it on the Wet Towns
it's gonna be on
website.
the town website, they'll, word of mouth, it's,
Maybe contact the realtors that.
Key Realty does a lot of the rental properties around here. Contact them, let them know this is, hey, your rental properties are gonna need to conform somewhat to what we're looking for, if they haven't already.
Probably also put it on some of the lake pages too on Facebook per se, just to get the word out.
Here's a key and here's the whatever, I don't know.
I don't quite understand the wording here. Is this like getting a rider on your insurance policy? And what I'm saying,
Yes.
we had a wedding at our home. And we were renting, we had sold our house in Mass, we were renting, and we were up here, but the wedding was where we were renting in Mass. And I informed the owner of the building, and he said, well, just let me get a rider on your insurance. And it didn't cost me anything, it really, but I got $1 million rider, because we're having a wedding, we were serving alcohol.
And we weren't
Not
invited.
in our own, is that kind of what this is?
Honestly, I don't know.
Because I don't know what they mean by certificate.
I don't believe it is. I
Okay,
believe,
I have no idea what
A
it is.
certificate
I
holder,
believe it's having proper insurance covering,
It's just,
the property and liability, for you renting out
And honestly, your insurance
it's a
company.
different policy. Now, my question is, Why-
No, that's all right, she was going first. You go ahead and finish.
go ahead.
That's fine.
why are we asking to have the town named as a certificate holder, when all we need to do is say, you must hold valid insurance for renting your property?
That's to ensure that they maintain the insurance.
Well,
So
I
if-
understand that, but
If they
if-
drop their insurance, then the town would know about it.
So, we've notified, I mean, and I know, I remember the conversation about liability, and, if we tell the people that they need to keep proper insurance, why is that not the extent of what we're
How
doing?
many people used to get car insurance and then drop it as soon as, then a month later? It happens.
And, all right, they drop
as
it,
soon as
what
you
are we
get
gonna
registered.
do?
I'll get
As soon as you
registered.
register and
Well,
inspect
that
your
was
car,
back in
it
the
goes to
day.
their insurance, and somebody gets in an accident and that person doesn't have insurance anymore.
That's why you
So
have
this is why the
uninsured
certificate holder is the
insurance on your
town.
policies.
Well, that's why they have the certificate holder as the town. If
And then-
they're
and then-
registering it with the town to be a rental property of
Okay,
that
we-
sort, and then they get rid of their insurance, then the town is notified.
So Jason, so you get that notification, then what do? What are the ramifications? What is the recourse that the town has when they get a notice like that?
well, we could
put a
send them a
stop
letter asking them if they're
Put a
still
stop.
renting their building or not.
And it all falls under, what is it, the Title 25 MRS, right?
Yeah, this is all covered in the
fall-
state.
yeah.
I mean, the state requires you have rental insurance.
Well,
too.
absolutely, the state
Yeah.
does. So,
So if anything was to happen,
Why shouldn't the
then,
town require it? So if the state's requiring you to have rental insurance, if you're renting off the state, why shouldn't the town say, hey, follow what the state says? You know?
I don't have a problem with it saying, you know, you need you need proper insurance, but, as far as, because there's no way for us to enforce this.
I guess that the verbiage may be the issue as, I mean, I don't understand anybody that wouldn't, have insurance on something that they're renting out, you know, to cover any type of loss. I think that the problem in the verbiage would be that the town of Acton is the certificate holder. What exactly does that mean? The town of Acton being a certificate holder?
Well, like I,
The insurance company provides evidence to the town that the owner has insurance. So it's proper evidence for the town. And then that evidence is then mailed to us by the insurance
Insurance company.
provider every year, or however often they renew it, so that we know that they're still properly insured.
So then
It's
basically
really
you're
nothing-
relying on the insurance company to let you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty common, liability insurance. You're working for somebody, they wanna know you have it. You don't just say, oh yeah, I have it, here's my bill. They're like, no, we want our name, you know, put in the box, and
I understand that, but once again, now that goes to the question that Leslie was asking. If you get notification from an insurance company that says property X is no longer insured, okay, what are the ramifications that the town can take?
Well, they'd be in violation of the
Stopping them
ordinance.
for renting, or a fine if they continue to rent until they get more insurance?
Maybe Tom, you wanna,
I just wanted to ask a
Weigh in.
question, I'm trying to understand what the town's interest is here. Is there a liability to the town if somebody does not have their property insured if they're renting? Is the town liable in some way? What if we don't have this?
Can I answer that?
I can answer that. The town will only be liable for it if you actually had a permit process that you were supposed to go through. And say if the code officer went down and addressed the issue and it wasn't addressed, now the town's gonna be responsible for it.
So I'm
When I
not
look
sure,
at it.
I'm not sure why this is, why we're even, you know, getting ourselves involved in, you know, monitoring whether or not people have insurance on their property. Because I think it does expose us further if we don't have a good follow-up and monitoring mechanism in place.
And there's no penalty if they drop it, according to what is written in here. And Jason, do you really have time to
you make time.
go out and knock on doors? I mean, with everything
Jason
else
wouldn't
you
be
have to
knocking on
do.
doors to take care of that issue.
I mean-
It's as simple as Ashley
Yeah.
sending a letter saying, we noticed that you haven't renewed your insurance, are you still renting this property? I mean, that's not a complicated
And they
thing to
ignore the
do.
letter, and then what do you do?
Well, then you probably, you know, kick the ball, and then next month or so, you send them another letter. I mean, that's what I would think would happen, but honestly, I don't really know, because I haven't been through the whole process, but that would be my guess.
it's an attempt.
It's an attempt.
You know,
But this, I'm sorry, but there's just, I feel to understand what the town's interest is in making sure these property owners are insuring their property for renters. Maybe there is one, I just don't get it.
May I?
If anything happens on their property, that'd be a civil matter between the renter and the
Rentee.
the property owner. When the town gets involved, what you're doing is, you know, I understand what you guys are doing and all that, but the end game comes to this. Some people are gonna comply, most people aren't. So you're gonna spend your time chasing around the ones who are gonna comply, and the ones who aren't are pretty much giving the town a little finger, do whatever you want. So, I mean, it's all good, I just, I have my reservations on it. I think we're pulling ourselves into a liability issue.
Right?
Go ahead, Joyce.
Leslie and I both took a course from MMA on something that covered this subject. And one of the biggest things is, in case of a calamity, if there's a fire, and somebody dies, and the town allowed this property to be rented, whether it's a summer rental or a, what did you call it, Chris? A long-term rental?
Yeah, long-term
Or a
rental.
long-term rental. Somebody died, and they're going to sue. And they're going to sue the owner of the building, and who doesn't have deep pockets, but the town has deeper pockets, and the people that will get sued up the line is unbelievable. And I mean, enough so that MMA gave us an entire class on it.
I think if there's an ordinance that says that you're required to have it, and there's some stated follow-up mechanism that is not followed, I believe you've exposed yourself to a greater degree. I suspect if I rent my property and it burns, it's on fire, and somebody dies, that is an issue for me. I would love to hear from legal counsel whether or not the town can be threatened.
I'll ask,
If not,
I'll ask the, I mean, he gave zero comments on that line particular whatsoever. He didn't have any concerns with it at all. And as you can see, this
And
is
a lot
all
of it
red.
is-
I got a
A civil matter.
here. So, from what Joyce just said about someone renting and then someone dying, what's the difference if you have a regular occupant that lives a year around, it's in a house that's not up to code? At that point, the town would be more liable because the people living there in the first place. So you could, if they're gonna sue, they're gonna sue.
Exactly.
You open up the door like we're gonna do, now they're giving them a runway. But at the same time, if somebody dies in a building, what's gonna end up happening is our code enforcement officer tomorrow morning should be going to every house, knocking on the door and inspection every house in the town of Acton if they look at it like that. Well, because
I think that's extreme, but,
No, but what you're saying is because if somebody dies renting a place, that the town of Acton is responsible because of what?
No, that's not what I said. I said this,
That's what
in this,
MMA said.
MMA gave us his class, and in the litigious time that we are right now, this is what happens, can happen, has happened. And I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. I'm simply giving another, again, it falls under, to me, how do we enforce it?
Right.
I mean,
I get it.
on our, what is it, car registrations, we have the stamp for the insurance company. We don't have anything like that for renting houses. So,
I think a call to the lawyers on this would just clarify.
Yeah.
If there's an added liability to the town because we have renters that have not been insured, does that create any exposure for the town?
If we enact this ordinance, Tom,
If
as
we
it
enact
is,
this ordinance or not,
what's the
do we
liability?
have is there a liability or not?
Yeah,
Whether they sue us is another matter.
yeah.
right,
But if there's no liability or a small, I think MMA
Yeah.
can probably sort this out in a 5-minute call.
Right, and I tend to be in agreement with David as far as it kind of opening the door if the town of Acton is a certificate holder.
But
We will
I
make
think,
it-
hold on.
Right.
I think we have answered this whole discussion
yeah.
by Tom asking, because we all have opinions.
Yeah, none of us are lawyers.
And I would just not continue this conversation and get an answer from Joel and Kelsey. And where he's the one that handles this stuff legally,
Yeah.
I'd be more than willing to accept his response.
So the question you want me to present to him is the town, is there an added liability to the town with being the certificate holder? Or just in general?
In general, I would think.
I'm not sure this is a land use lawyer's question.
Okay.
I'll leave that.
Well, I can tell you an attorney drafted this.
And it would go to, perhaps, we already have MMA on retainer. They can probably answer this for us.
Yeah, you send it to both.
Yeah. I'd
And
send
if you
it
got the same answer,
And pose it as both.
That'd be nice.
So, back to, how does this question want to be addressed? To either MMA or Joe? I want to make sure I'm asking the,
I mean, this ordinance create any liability for the town, I guess.
just the whole ordinance, it's the whole
As written.
proposal.
Yeah,
If, assuming we have no follow-up mechanism that can actually ensure that this insurance
Sure.
is in place.
just historically too, Jason, and I don't know, you know, what's been done. Historically, ordinances have always been passed on to MMA, to make sure, for the liability purposes, because that's obviously, that's what they are, liability, insurance company, so, and I understand, you know, you work very close with Joe, but,
Yeah, this is a learning process for me at the same
Yeah.
time as most of my planning board as well, so.
just like all our warrant, normally, the town meeting warrant, when it's drafted, just like the school was, it was sent through, MMA or MSMA, to make sure that everything was in place to protect the town, and we weren't doing anything that was,
Yeah, we're not trying to put the town in any,
no, but that's what they do, they say, oh, no, you can't do that, because then you're gonna be in trouble, or this is fine, and God love you, you know what I mean?
yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, that, to me, that would really, it ends the discussion here, and we'll get some,
Yeah,
information from legal and see where it goes.
I'll follow up with these and then I can come back to you guys on Monday. I think you guys meeting next Monday too or something like that?
Yeah, that's fine, you can just send us an email or whatever you wanna do.
I don't know if it's totally necessary to go through the entire ordinance, just to go through that line.
Well, the MMA we will send it to MMA, the whole ordinance, and the whole ordinance, Joe's already seen the whole ordinance, so, I mean, that's what,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's only 2 pages.
I sent this to the land use, or Acton's land use attorney, or one of them, and, he addressed all the concerns that he addressed.
Yeah.
So we made those changes, and as you can see, B had, with the certificate holder, had no comments at all.
right, and again, he's only human, and
Correct, and so more eyes that look at it, I guess, the better.
there might have been other things that caught his eye more, you know what I mean, so it kinda, I don't know. But
Yeah,
unless somebody else has some other,
Do we have one more of these?
there is one more, I'm sorry.
No.
Did I miss one?
Don't know if there is.
There is one more, isn't there?
What do you got there?
This, relative to structure?
We did that, the first one we did.
No, is it?
Yeah.
Or did we do?
Yeah, we did that one. We did all the one pages first.
I think,
Oh, no, we did relative to mixed-use structures. So it's a different name?
There's one that's just for structure, and then one that's for mixed use
relative,
structures, yes.
We did mixed-use structures.
So the one for relative to structure,
think
the one
this is
that
the
has
first
to deal with the septic systems.
this is the first one we did.
geothermal wells.
Geothermal wells.
And what I did, I set that over there by you, George,
Probably Dennis.
instead of putting it over.
Dennis is messing around with you.
That's it.
It's Dennis's,
It's it.
it was
He
at
does this
Dennis.
all.
Yeah, I know.
That's the man, that's really good. Never changes. Year after year.
So that's all.
I was gonna, make a comment about some of the, I'm not going to.
That's good.
I would like to thank you guys for being here, explaining stuff, with all the people we've had here, so far has been, very much appreciated. Last week we had the fire chief and the library, and they were very informative on where they were coming from, and they were good. And like I said, we meet with the Board of Selectmen next week, go over their part of the budget and what they're looking at. And we're done with the school, so the following Monday would be the 14th, I think, or something
Yeah.
like that. We'll be starting to vote on the warrant articles. I doubt very much they will get through it in one night. So I've also scheduled with Jen, the following Monday, the 21st, which is the end of the line anyway, because the selectmen have to, approve the warrant. I think it's the 27th or something, so
I think
that.
the 21st is on Thursday, so.
It is? Okay. It's that Monday.
By
It's that
planning board meetings, I
No,
have one on
it's
the
the Monday
21st.
before that.
The 18th.
And, because the selectmen have to sign the warrant so she can get it posted for the town meeting date, so, worst case scenario, we'd be voting on this
Yeah.
in 3 weeks,
Like I said,
2 more weeks.
planning board's meeting, Thursday night, just to deal with the issue with our
Solar.
solar energy systems. That change will be made that night, and we will inform you guys of what the planning board has decided with that one. And then I'll speak to MMA, as well as, I'll start with MMA and find a contact over there to use with them. And let them look at the tiny homes and, and anything else that.
The rentals.
That's right,
That's the
I'm sorry,
rentals.
yeah, I meant that.
I know you did. But I would like to thank you guys for all the work you do. I know it's a lot of work, and
They worked
I
hard,
appreciate what you do.
a lot of time.
So unless you guys wanna bring something to the committee. Unless you wanna bring something else. Look at your face, Jason, like, are you kidding me?
We can tell you this.
I'm with Tom over there, he's already getting ready to leave.
We got one more thing to go here. I'll tell you this, it's when you bring chocolate chip cookies. We have been spoiled. Things go like that.
I know.
We're easy.
What else we got?
Good, how you doing?
You need to sit back down.
I could bring in some, booze cookies and make it go a lot quicker.
Oh, yeah.
Cookies with some booze.
Hold on a minute,
and
guys.
it'll go a lot quicker.
Go.
We're not done.
Hold on just a minute.
Nice try, Joe,
Dennis.
We're not done.
The other conversation that I was supposed to have at our last meeting, was, you guys have the list of social services. The selectmen said last week that the only social services they were gonna put forward was the same ones that was put forward last year. And so now the conversation needs to be, is there any of these social services that you need more information on? You have all the information in the packets on all of them. And rather than to prolong this meeting, I would ask that you send an email to me or call me, however it works for you, and I'll pass it on to Jen, and we'll do the best we can do. Okay?
Pass it on, but what our comment is on some of the,
No, if you want more information than.
more information,
Than
yeah.
what's in your packet, pretty well laid out in your packet.
Yeah, it's,
But there might be some more questions or whatever that we could get answered.
I was just curious if if it was seed money or where to
Yeah.
stop and start. I mean, it sounds really great, but you're giving over $70,000 out,
Yeah,
which is fine. But, at what point, where do you stop and start?
Right.
It's like,
one thing I want you guys to think about those social services is, lots of times we compare ourselves with Shapley on different things. And the dollar amount in Shapley is a lot less for social services than it is in Acton. But what Shapley does different is the Acton Wakefield Watershed Alliance, that's not part of their warrant. That's $11,000, and we put all of it under social services. The, Acton Shapley, Watershed Alliance, they put that in as a separate article, and that's $22,000. And the other difference is, big difference, is the town of Shapley has a library, and we have ours, it isn't a town library, ours is a donation. So you don't see that cost in their donations too, so you're talking, $50,000 to $60,000. This someplace else in Shapley's Warrant, and it's all in the same article with us.
How about Newfield?
I didn't,
They cut out a lot.
I don't know, Joe.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, you know.
You can bring that information, buddy.
I
Well,
think one
where am
of,
I gonna get it, Mr. Long?
I don't know where I get some of my information.
I think one of the questions, Dennis, that came up, before
Thank you. There you go.
was,
Jason, I think you.
the amount of money that Acton was donating one of the dams.
Yeah.
I believe David had made a comment that that was somewhat of an oversight that had been passed up, so I was just wondering.
We'll have that question next week, Greg. When we meet with the selectmen. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Joe wants to stay in the
See that?